What famous writers are quite overrated? E. L. James. Her books are not original. 50 Shades of Grey is a rip-off from the Twilight series. This makes the trilogy horrible and atrocious. Because the Twilight books were quite bad to begin with. E. L. James's books are Twilight fanfiction and 100 times worse than the original. This trilogy is offensive to writers and literature. Her content is the fantasy of a 15-year-old girl. The quality of her writing is comparable to that of an 8-year-old child who learned sex ed from porn movies. The main character of 50 Shades of Grey is a creep and an abuser who gets off on being controlling. He is a billionaire in his 20s who never works. He donates to charity. He is trying to end world hunger. He is a qualified pilot, speaks French and can play piano very well. He is handsome, fit, tall, has a big penis and blah blah, every cliché you can find in a character. The female character is a timid college graduate who doesn't have access to a computer in the modern day. The man spends impulsively and never goes bankrupt. Did I say he never goes to work? He is a self-made billionaire. Not a millionaire. But a billionaire. In his 20s. The main characters are horrible. They are Mary Sue characters. They are unbelievable as people. They do everything stupid and other characters laud them for being amazing, pretty and intelligent. Nothing happens in the story. The characters are pushed into situations for the sake of forcing out dialogue. Anastasia is bitter and mean. Christian is a crazy abuser. The sex scenes are mediocre and not real. They are comical at best. The girl is a shy, innocent virgin who agrees to sign non-disclosure contracts with Grey to perform BDSM acts. Christian's story is that he lost his virginity to an older woman, a friend of his mother. Eye roll. The girl constantly orgasms or chews on her lip. She says, "Oh my" or "geez" a lot. Then, there is all this 50 Shades of 7 Shades of nonsense. I am not sure who purchased these books. And why they promoted it to others, who in turn purchased more copies. Even more curious is why a movie was made. This piece of crap is offensive to both males and females. It depicts the notion that a guy who is abusive, controlling, rich, has a big penis and doesn't work is the ultimate desire of females. It also blatantly suggests that males are not desirable if they are not rich, extremely fit, very skilled or don't have a big penis. It would have been far easier to help curb world hunger if 0 copies of this trilogy were purchased. The net worth of E. L. James is around $80 million. It would have been money well spent if the consumers actually donated directly to an end poverty charity. Not to a writer whose horrible fictitious character tries to end world hunger. This trilogy is a parasite in literature, latching on to mediocre readers and fans. Spreading to many more. If this is the next wave of literature, then the world is doomed. Idiocy has won. Yes, mother of the HP franchise, inspiration of all white middle-class aspirational female writers, fighter on Twitter against all things unjust as long as it doesn't alienate her audiences, constant rewriter of her own work because she didn't think it through when she wrote it the first time. Okay. I know I'm going to get a lot of heat for this, so let me make one thing clear: I don't think Rowling is a bad writer. I think she's an overrated writer. She got lucky with Harry Potter. She got lucky to have a good editor when she first started, and her works suffer length problems and meander too much after she stopped listening to her editor. She got lucky her works hit the sweet spot of familiar enough to be relatable and imaginative enough to be special. Harry Potter is a book full of clichés and bad world building. It is very narrow in its subject, British middle-class social struggle, and characters are mostly shallow and cliched. They're still likable, but don't really have a lot of depth. No, not the, but Snape. Again, Snape is so typical a Byronic tragic hero. I would be very surprised if he didn't get all the teenager love. I was 14 once, I know what it's like to fall for Mr. Rochester. The first 3 books were great. I enjoyed them quite a lot. It has all the British boarding school mischievous juvenile charm. And it would have been great if Rowling kept the story small and light-hearted. But no, she got ambitious. She wanted to introduce a functional magical world. And that's when her whimsical imagination fell short. It is hard to build a functional, logical magical world, even the one building on top of ours. And since she didn't think it through before she started, and doesn't have the writing skill to catch up, Harry Potter's magical world doesn't really hold much water if you sit down and really think about it. And it just so happens that I'm one of those very few readers who enjoy breaking down worlds and see how it works. Rowling's magical world doesn't work. Not at all. And don't get me started on her subtle racism, her silence on bullying and slavery. For a book that's supposedly about equality and underprivileged people, it is also surprisingly tone-deaf on a lot of more subtle aspects of social equality issues. And no, do not argue, but Rowling just created a world that reflects our own. Harry Potter is not Game of Thrones, or A Song of Ice and Fire. A Song of Ice and Fire created an extremely cruel world without the author ever making a moral judgment, or at least, not very obvious ones. GRRM didn't care about moral lessons, he just wants to tell a story and let the readers make the judgment themselves. By comparison, Harry Potter, being a children's, and later YA book, is very heavy-handed on moral lessons. There's always good versus evil, and good always prevails. When you have a strong moral lesson in your story, the parts when you keep silent speak loudly about what you really don't give a fuck about, like disabled people, squibs, bullying, James bullying Snape, and slavery, house elves. You shouldn't argue, but HP is a children's book. It's written for children. You shouldn't analyze this from an adult perspective. No. HP being a children's book doesn't justify its shitty writing and many problems and cliches, and questionable moral lessons. You shouldn't feed children shitty food just because they don't know better. Similarly, you should not give children shitty books just because they can't tell good literature from the bad. Sure, you might have eaten garbage food or read a few bad books when you're kid thinking it is the best thing in the world. But now you're all grown up, perhaps you should stop defending your childhood favorite garbage as the second coming of literature Jesus.